Everyone wants to be happy. It's the one universal goal that unites billionaires, monks, and people stuck in traffic. But if you've ever actually tried to be happy, you know how slippery it is. The moment you notice happiness, it vanishes, like trying to grab sunlight with your hands. We talk about happiness as if it's something we can buy, build, or schedule. I'll be happy when I get the job, when I meet the right person, when I finally move to that city. But neuroscience has bad news. The human brain is not designed for constant happiness. It's designed for survival, and survival runs on dissatisfaction. Our ancestors who were content sitting by the fire never noticed the tiger sneaking up behind them. The anxious, restless ones, the worriers, the planners, the what-if thinkers, they survive. We are descendants of the uneasy. So if you sometimes feel like happiness is unnatural, it's because, in evolutionary terms, it is. Modern science proves this. Psychologists call it the hedonic treadmill. No matter what happens, a promotion, a new relationship, $1 million lottery win, your happiness spikes, then returns to baseline. The brain adjusts fast. That's why people who win the lottery often end up as happy as they were before. And people who go through loss, with time, often recover emotionally. We're wired to reset. That might sound depressing, but it's actually a relief. It means happiness doesn't depend entirely on circumstances. It's not trapped in money, status, or perfect lives. It's a skill, one we can train, like learning an instrument. The science of happiness says we chase the wrong things. We think pleasure equals happiness, but pleasure is just the appetizer. Real happiness, the kind that lasts, comes from three less glamorous sources: purpose, connection, and gratitude. Purpose gives meaning to suffering. It's what makes people wake up early, work hard, and keep going even when life's unfair. Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist who survived the Holocaust, wrote that people who had a why could survive almost anyhow. Purpose doesn't erase pain, it gives it direction. Connection is our oldest survival tool. Loneliness, scientists say, is as dangerous as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Happiness isn't found in isolation, it's found in belonging. Not in having hundreds of followers, but in having a few people who actually listen when you speak. And gratitude, yes, the word that sounds like a motivational poster actually rewires your brain. Studies show that regularly writing down 3 things you're grateful for increases baseline happiness. Not because your life magically improves, but because your focus shifts. The brain is a spotlight. Where you aim, it determines what you see. Still, happiness isn't just about what we do. It's also about what we stop doing. We live in an age of comparison. Social media constantly reminds us that someone else is richer, thinner, happier, or on vacation while we're stuck doing laundry. That constant exposure to curated perfection creates a happiness illusion, one where contentment always belongs to someone else. The truth is, nobody feels happy all the time. Even the calmest person you know has moments of dread, boredom, and confusion. Happiness isn't a permanent state, it's a visitor. It arrives quietly, stays a moment, and leaves without warning. The trick is to stop chasing it like prey and start noticing it like weather. You can't control the rain, but you can dance in it when it falls. So maybe happiness isn't something you achieve. Maybe it's something you allow. Let's be honest. Happiness has terrible PR. We've turned it into a product, as something to pursue, optimize, and post about. Self-help books promise 7 steps to happiness. Apps track your mood like it's a stock market. Influencers sell serenity in pastel tones. But real happiness doesn't come from chasing it. It often appears when you stop. Psychologists call this the paradox of happiness. The more you try to measure it, the further it slips away. Happiness is like sleep, you can't will yourself into it. You create the right conditions, and it arrives when it wants. That's why people often describe their happiest moments as accidental: laughing with friends, hearing a song, watching a sunset. It's not a grand revelation, it's an ordinary moment that feels extraordinary because, for once, you stopped striving. But stopping isn't easy in a culture that worships productivity. We equate busyness with worth. "I'm so busy" has become a badge of honor. But a busy mind rarely feels joy. Happiness requires stillness, not the absence of activity, but the presence of attention. You don't need to move to the mountains. You just need to notice the coffee in your hand, the sound of rain, the fact that you're alive. The ancient Greeks had a word for deep, fulfilling happiness: eudaimonia. It didn't mean pleasure, it meant living in alignment with your values. Aristotle believed happiness wasn't a feeling but a byproduct of virtue. You become happy not by chasing pleasure but by becoming the kind of person who creates it naturally through curiosity, kindness, and integrity. Modern psychology backs this up. Studies show that volunteering, mentoring, or helping others boosts happiness more than material gain. The reason? It shifts focus from the self, the eternal critic, to connection. You stop asking, "Am I happy?" and start asking, "Am I useful?" That's when joy sneaks in through the back door. But happiness isn't all sunlight and mindfulness quotes. It has shadows too. To feel real happiness, you must allow real sadness. Emotional numbness doesn't discriminate. If you block pain, you block joy. That's why toxic positivity fails. Forcing yourself to look on the bright side when you're hurting is like painting over cracks in a wall. The cracks don't vanish. They deepen. True happiness isn't about ignoring suffering but integrating it. Life's most peaceful people aren't the ones who've avoided pain. They're the ones who've befriended it. They've learned to sit with discomfort without letting it define them. Happiness, in that sense, isn't the absence of struggle, it's grace within it. And let's talk about expectations, happiness's worst enemy. Most unhappiness comes from the gap between what we expect and what we get. You expect the perfect partner, job, or body, and when reality delivers good enough, it feels like failure. But if you reverse the equation, lower expectation, increase appreciation, life feels lighter. The smaller the gap, the calmer the heart. There's a Japanese concept for this, wabi-sabi, of the beauty of imperfection. It's the art of loving things not despite their flaws, but because of them. A cracked teacup, a wrinkled smile, a messy day, each carries quiet poetry. Happiness hides there in the real, not the ideal. So maybe the science of happiness isn't about fixing ourselves. Maybe it's about remembering we were never broken. Here's the secret no one likes to admit. Happiness is boring. It's quiet, simple, and photogenic. It doesn't shout, sparkle, or trend. That's why we miss it, because it rarely looks the way we expect. We imagine happiness as fireworks, but most of the time, it's candlelight. Think about it. The moments you remember as pure happiness aren't epic. They're small. Your favorite song on the radio, laughing with someone who gets your weird humor, waking up without an alarm. Happiness lives in the pauses between big events. But our brains are wired for drama, for spikes of emotion, not steady contentment. That's why calm feels suspicious. We mistake peace for boredom. Evolution built us this way. A brain that stayed satisfied stopped paying attention and probably got eaten. So our minds scan constantly for problems. Even in safety, they look for danger. That's why happiness takes effort, not to create it, but to notice it before your brain talks you out of it. Modern culture doesn't help. We're addicted to stimulation, new notifications, new goals, new everything. We chase dopamine hits instead of contentment. Dopamine gives excitement. Serotonin gives peace. One's a spark, the other's a fire. The first fades fast, the second needs tending. The problem is, society rewards sparks, not fires. Science says happiness comes more from subtraction than addition. Not what can I get, but what can I remove? Less comparison, less noise, fewer expectations. You can't pour joy into an overflowing glass. You have to empty it first. One of the simplest happiness experiments ever done proves this. Researchers asked people to write down 3 things that went well each day and why. After 2 weeks, happiness scores went up and stayed up for months. Why? Because it trained the brain to notice good things instead of defaulting to negativity. Gratitude doesn't change the world, it changes the lens you see it through. Happiness also hides in routine. The ordinary acts you take for granted, making breakfast, walking the dog, folding laundry, can become meditations if you pay attention. The problem isn't that life's mundane, it's that we stopped seeing its quiet rhythm as enough. The happiest people aren't those who escape routine, but those who find wonder in it. There's another powerful insight from neuroscience. Anticipation is often more pleasurable than achievement. Planning a trip, dreaming about success, imagining love will release dopamine. Once the moment arrives, the chemical high fades. That means half of happiness lies not in having, but in hoping. Enjoying the waiting instead of resenting it might be the smartest life hack of all. And then there's laughter, the most underrated therapy. When you laugh, Your brain releases endorphins, your muscles relax, and your perspective widens. You can't be angry and truly laugh at the same time. Humor doesn't deny pain, it humbles it. Maybe that's why wise people seem funny. They've learned to take life seriously enough to care, but not seriously enough to suffer necessarily. In the end, happiness isn't something we chase across the horizon, it's the horizon itself. The moment you stop running and look around, you realize you've been standing in it the whole time. So perhaps the science of happiness isn't about discovering something new. It's about remembering something ancient, how to be human without apology. Let's talk about the myth of happy people. You've met them, the ones who seem endlessly upbeat, smiling at everything, glowing with Zen calm. You might think they've cracked the code, that they wake up every morning to birds singing Disney songs. But if you could peek inside their minds, you'd find something surprising. They're not happy all the time, they just recover faster. The difference between a happy person and an unhappy one isn't emotion, it's resilience. Life eats everyone. Some people bounce back quicker because they don't argue with reality. They accept pain as part of the package. Happiness, to them, isn't the absence of struggle, it's the art of coming back from it. This is what psychologists call emotional agility. It's the ability to feel everything without getting stuck. Instead of pretending everything's fine, emotionally agile people say, "This hurts," and then ask, "Now what?" They don't drown in feelings, they surf them. Science backs this up. Studies show that people who label their emotions honestly, "I feel angry, I feel sad, I feel scared," recover faster than those who suppress them. Honesty, it turns out, is medicine. Denial may numb pain, but it also numbs joy. So happiness doesn't come from positivity, it comes from presence. It's the courage to face life as it is, not as you wish it were. That's harder than smiling for Instagram. It's a discipline, a quiet strength. Here's another truth: happiness grows in motion. It doesn't visit those waiting for perfect conditions, it shows up when you move. Exercise, for example, is one of the most reliable antidepressants in the world, not because it burns calories, but because it tricks the brain into feeling progress. Moving the body signals the mind, we're not stuck. That's a story the brain loves. Even tiny actions count: cleaning your desk, making your bed, drinking water. Each small act of order pushes back against chaos. It's not about control, it's about momentum. Happiness isn't found in achievement, it's hidden in forward motion. Still, there's something deeper. The happiest people aren't chasing feelings, they're chasing truth. They've realized that happiness is not about constant pleasure but constant alignment. When your values match your actions, you feel peace. When they don't, you feel anxiety. You can't trick your soul. That's why lying to yourself, "I'm fine, this is what I want," it doesn't matter, always backfires. Inner peace isn't achieved by ignoring inner truth. Happiness demands honesty, especially with yourself. And then there's gratitude, again the simplest, cheapest, most reliable happiness drug ever discovered. It sounds cliché, but it works because it trains your perception. Gratitude doesn't change what you have, it changes what you notice. You stop scanning for problems and start scanning for blessings. The more you practice it, the more your brain reprograms its baseline from scarcity to abundance. But gratitude doesn't mean denial. You can be grateful and still tired, thankful and still frustrated. Real gratitude is layered. It's saying, "Life isn't perfect, but I'm still lucky to live it." That's not naivety, that's maturity. So maybe happiness isn't about smiling all the time. Maybe it's about being able to say, "This hurts," and still whisper, "But I'm glad I'm here," because happiness, like life itself, isn't something you master, it's something you practice. If you think about it, most people don't want happiness, they want relief. Relief from anxiety, pressure, fear, loneliness. That's why happiness feels so mysterious. We confuse it with the absence of discomfort instead of the presence of peace. But peace isn't what you find when life stops hurting, it's what you discover while it's hurting. That's the quiet genius of happiness. It coexists with pain. It doesn't erase the storm. It gives you shelter inside it. Neuroscience has a term for this: emotional homeostasis. Your brain always tries to bring you back to balance, no matter what happens. It's the reason tragedies don't destroy everyone and success doesn't save anyone forever. Your mind resets. It's a kind of mercy written into our biology. Still, we resist it. We keep thinking happiness will come later, after the next raise, after the next trip, after we finally figure everything out. But life isn't waiting for us to be ready. It's happening now. If you can't be at peace with this imperfect moment, you won't be happy in the next one either. There's a reason mindfulness is so effective. It's not mystical, it's mechanical. When you pay attention to the present, you interrupt your brain's endless prediction loop, the one that constantly replays the past and worries about the future. Mindfulness isn't about chanting or detaching. It's about noticing the coffee you're holding instead of scrolling past your own life. Psychologists have found that even brief mindfulness exercises, just 10 minutes a day, increase happiness, focus, and emotional regulation. The key isn't time, it's intention. You can meditate while washing dishes if you actually feel the warm water, the motion, the simplicity. The goal isn't to stop thinking. It's to stop believing every thought, because your thoughts are storytellers. And most of them are terrible writers. They invent plots where you're the victim, catastrophes that never happen, criticisms no one said aloud. You don't have to silence them, just stop giving them full creative control. There's also the role of gratitude, again, not as a ritual, but as perspective correction. When life feels heavy, write down one thing that didn't go wrong today. You'll find dozens. The light turned green. The coffee was hot. Someone smiled. The miracle isn't that everything's perfect. It's that so much isn't broken. The happiest people aren't the ones with the fewest problems, they're the ones with the best perception of proportion. They don't let one dark cloud cover the whole sky. And here's a paradox worth remembering. Happiness often shows up disguised as nothing special. It doesn't arrive with trumpets. It sneaks in while you're cooking dinner, talking to a friend, or walking home after a long day. The brain doesn't announce it, it just exhales. Maybe that's the real definition of happiness, the brief, blessed moments when you forget to want anything else. So yes, happiness is harder than it looks, but only because we keep looking in the wrong direction. It's not on the next mountain, it's under your feet. Asterisk, maybe happiness isn't something we're meant to chase, but something we're meant to remember. We were born knowing how to be happy. Babies laugh hundreds of times a day for no reason. Then we grow up, get educated, get serious, and start waiting for permission to smile again. The world teaches us that happiness must be earned through success, approval, or progress. But nature disagrees. Watch a dog chase its tail or a child stomp in puddles. That's pure joy. And touched by achievement, we've just forgotten the simplicity of it. We complicate happiness because we mistake excitement for fulfillment. Excitement burns fast, fulfillment glows slow. One is noise, the other is music. True happiness feels less like fireworks and more like a steady hum, quiet, warm, and deeply human. That hum gets louder when we start aligning life with meaning, not metrics. When you stop asking, "Am I successful?" and start asking, "Am I grateful?" When you stop chasing more and start noticing enough. Happiness lives in that shift from ambition to appreciation. There's a simple question you can ask to measure happiness. Would I still choose this, even if no one saw it? If the answer is yes, you're close. Because happiness is what survives after performance ends. And here's the truth most science papers won't tell you: happiness isn't sustainable because it's not supposed to be. It's a pulse, not a state. It flickers on and off to remind us we're alive. The goal isn't to stretch it forever, but to let it come and go without fear. When sadness comes, don't panic. It's not failure, it's maintenance. Sadness resets your emotional balance. It sharpens your empathy and humbles your ego. You can't stay joyful without occasionally breaking open. That's biology, not philosophy. If you study the happiest people, they all share one secret: they stop negotiating with life. They don't bargain, "I'll be happy if." They choose joy even when the contract looks unfair. They understand that life isn't a fairy tale, but it's still a gift. Maybe happiness, then, isn't about fixing the human condition but accepting it. You're not supposed to have constant bliss. You're supposed to have moments, short, bright, and predictable. And if you collect enough of them, they form a life. So stop searching for the perfect formula. Close the self-help book. Turn off the motivational video. Go outside. Call a friend. Watch the clouds. Feel your breath. You don't need to understand happiness to feel it. Because happiness, in the end, is not a science. It's an art, and you are both the canvas and the painter.